relaxation and chill out and see if anybody's going to come this morning. Hey everybody, Anthony here from magneticmemorymethod.com with my good friend Jennie Gorman, who has a really incredible memory loss story. We're sitting here and we're shooting some videos about masterminding, which is a really exciting thing that Jennie is a master of. And, you know, I've heard a few times her story of memory loss and how she recovered from it. And I wanted to ask her if she would spend some time with us today about this topic and tell her story. So listen, if you are interested in memory education and you're coming across this video and you aren't subscribed to this channel, just hit that subscribe button below. You're really going to love it. We talk a lot about memory and topics around memory, and today we're talking about memory loss. And if you're just hopping on this call live now, this is Jennie Gorman. She's going to talk today about her experience with memory loss, and let us know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Hit that thumbs up to let us know that you're engaged, you're alive, you're breathing, your heart is pumping, and that your lungs are expanding and breathing and you're having fun. And we want to talk to you. So this is live, interactive. Silvano is here. Hi, Silvano, from Venezuela. Wow. What time is it in Venezuela? Say hello to Jennie here. We're going to talk about memory loss. Thanks for that thumbs up. Keep them coming. Let us know that you're alive and breathing. Jennie.
Hi, Savannah.
Tell everybody who you are and what's up.
Hi, I'm Jennie Gorman. I'm in Brisbane, Australia. And yes, I do have a story, Anthony, about memory loss, because I did lose my short-term memory for 18 months. And it was a very scary time for me, as well as a wonderful learning, because it actually slowed me down and stopped me, because I didn't have a choice to do much else. For 12 months of that 18 months, I actually had a carer with me because I really didn't know who I was or where I lived. And this was a bit of a challenge. For me, it was a result of heavy metal poisoning. So it was lead and mercury. And that had come from my mouth, from dentistry, which is a little bit scary. The dentistry was able to do that for me. So with a lot of research, a very, very good doctor and a wonderful dentist he put me on to, we were able to do a reversal on that.
Wow, that's amazing. So heavy metal poisoning. I want to catch up with this live here that Silvano says, hi, Jennie, and it's 9:52 p.m. in Venezuela. Amazing.
Hi, Savannah. It's really nice to have you with us. So thank you for joining us today. We would love to talk with you.
Yeah. And everybody who's hopping on the live, let us know where you are in the world. This is all about interacting with you. And thanks for those thumbs up. Keep them coming. That lets us know you're hopping and that you're alive. And tell us about your own memory experience. Look, you don't have to have had heavy metal poisoning to have experienced some kind of memory loss. There's really mild memory loss. There's just absence of mind and so forth. We want to hear what you have experienced. And so, Drunken Monkeyfish, so good to see you again from the Pacific Northwest. What time is it in the Pacific Northwest? Now, Jennie, when did you first notice that you had an issue with memory loss?
I was working with somebody and I was getting more and more frustrated because I wasn't remembering things. And the one thing in the marketplace I was renowned for was the ability to have an incredible memory. And I'd like to add that I do have that memory back again. So I could hear somebody's voice that I hadn't spoken to for 10 years and I'd recognise who they were. Or even now that I've now got that skill back, that happens for me. I will remember people and I'll remember conversations. So I was renowned for saying, well, don't you remember we met 15 years ago and we went to whatever cafe and we talked about so-and-so and we sat in the back corner. So I lost the ability to do that, which was really, really scary, because I remember I wasn't remembering things I would. And I do remember one day sitting in my own sitting room with somebody who is my best friend. And I remember looking at her and thinking, who are you? What's your name? I can't remember. There was this, that's when I really realised I had a problem, was because I couldn't remember people that were my best friends. I remembered them, but I couldn't pull the name up because I just couldn't get the name. And that is one thing that I remember really, really clearly, that her name just wasn't there. This was all over it was over the time that Princess Diana died, actually. So it was, I remember very clearly. I knew that on Monday morning I could go down and get 11 videos for the week. So I started watching a lot of videos. But in those days, they weren't recording what you'd take out, and I'd keep coming back with them. And the friend who actually left her marriage and brought her dog and lived with me for 12 months, she said, she used to say to me, but you had that one last week or the week before. And I kept saying, no, I've never seen it before. And it wasn't until I'd maybe get to the end of the movie and realise, well, yeah, I have seen that. So it was in that sort of thing that was really interesting, because I didn't remember what I'd even been watching. And so I'd be sitting for a couple of hours in front of something and there was no recollection of the name of the movie.
Wow.
And so that made me really aware. I really didn't know it. But I think the day this particular friend who moved in with me, she came and she said, I knew you were in trouble, because she'd been coming up and down from the Gold Coast to Brisbane to see me. And she said to me later that every time she would come, she would realise that I was getting worse. And she laughs now and she says, it was the day I walked in the door and there you are sitting in the middle of the day, still in your nightwear, which you would never do, and you're trying to fill in a form and you didn't know where you lived and who you were. You didn't remember. I don't remember that, but she talks about that.
Well, I want to catch up with some of the points you're raising here, but let's check in with our live people. Silvano says, thanks for sharing your experience. Well, thank you for letting us know you appreciate it, Silvano. We really appreciate that. And Alejandro is here. Alejandro is from Colombia. It's 8:55 p.m. there. Well,
Hi.
Thanks for showing up. It's amazing, the international people that show up. And let us know if you're on the live call where you are and where you're from, and let us know with your thumbs up that you're engaged with this, that you enjoy this kind of conversation. And make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you aren't already, because these are the kinds of conversations we have. And now, thank you to Jennie for sharing what must be a sensitive story. I mean, what were you feeling in all of this?
I was in absolute, it was scary. It was very, very scary. And I found that I created a therapy for myself, amongst a lot of other therapies that we used. But one was that I got my photographs and I started there was at that time, the only business around where you could get things and learn about how to work with photographs was Creative Memories, and it's a product. I don't know if it still even exists. And I started creating pages of events, and I love taking photographs, but I went right back to my childhood photographs and even my parents' photographs. So if I would have an event, I would take lots and I would actually cut them out in shapers and do it on a page. And I would find that when I'd go back to old photos, and these were taken in my own home, I couldn't remember who the people were. And gradually I started to, by doing this, actually get the ability to remember who people were, so I could write it on it. I watched a few years later my mother with dementia and recognised with her what she was going through. I was lucky I came back. Of course, she wasn't going to come back. But I used to journal a lot, so if I'd get up in the middle of the night and go to the loo, which I would do, I always had a pencil and paper on a table outside, and I would sit and recall what I'd been dreaming about or some thoughts that would come to me. And then, of course, Linda, who was living with me, was so wonderful, because in the morning we would go back over these and we'd have a look at. So I used dream therapy also very much as a way of me being able to look at what was going on in my subconscious, even though it was heavy metal poisoning. And it took time to get it out, but it took 6 months before they could even start doing any removal. I was so bad.
Wow.
So I went in and detoxed and went away to places where I would be looked after initially to try and get my body in the shape so that they could start working with me. I'd have intravenous vitamin C. Every week I'd go and have a big bag of this pumped into me. I was doing everything I could to try to alleviate the stress that I was going through, till eventually I did. And because I had the heavy metal in 4 quadrants, they could only remove one at a time. And this is a specialty thing. You just don't get any dentist to do this. They've got to be someone who knows, because when they remove, they will release it into your bloodstream. And release it in your mouth. So they have to have special extraction methods on how they do this. But every quadrant that got removed and replaced with something that had no heavy metal in it, I started to improve. And as my dentist said to me, dentistry has done this to you. And that was really scary. He said, and of course I would have been at that time in my 50s, I suppose, early 50s. And yes, it was a really frightening time for me and those around me, especially my children.
Hey, look, it's Nick. Hello,
hi, Nick.
Jenny,
how are you? Nice to have you with us too. You're here in Brisbane.
Well, Nick, and Dan is here. So Dan says you were creating new memories or reconnecting to previously stored memories. So Dan's really interested that you took action and you were doing something with your journal there.
Well, it was real with the photography. That I used photos of people I knew and started creating stories. So every page would be of an event I had or at a group of people that we were all together on the one day or having a similar experience. And I would cut them out in shapes and do it, but I did it in pages. And so I could write on, as I would bring the memories back, I could write on who these people were. I don't know where that came from. I obviously became aware at the time that I didn't remember who people were. And for somebody who was renowned in the marketplace because of their memory, this was really, really difficult for me because I felt stupid when I didn't remember who somebody was. So when I noticed that I had that with my friends and closest friends, that was even scarier because, of course, you know who your best friend is. But when you can't remember their name and you're sitting there looking at them and it's as though you're in a drunken state, yet you hadn't had a drink, that's when it really, I think that time when that happened that I didn't remember who Shirley was really scary for me because I'm sitting in my sitting room and she's talking about something and I had no idea what she was talking about.
It sounds like the most amazing experience to be in, but, you know, this idea of dentistry, having done it to you, it seems like a pretty hefty price to pay because you obviously were someone who took care of yourself and went to the dentist in the first place. So,
I'm a six-monthly girl.
what does that feel like to... Like, did you feel betrayed by the dental industry or?
No, I'd sort of worked around that health industry over a lot of years and I recognised there was a problem. I didn't at first put it together as that. At that time I was running a health information service around the world. So yes, for me it was, and this is nearly 20 years ago, so it's a long time ago now. But at that time, I was very aware that there were problems with the things that were happening within our body as a result of our environment and what we were doing. So it was no great surprise to me when my dentist said, I think it's heavy metal poisoning. We need to have a look at this because it was coming up in blood testing. And of course, when you have heavy metal poisoning, there is an advantage to carrying a lot of weight, because that gets locked in your weight rather than kill you. Oh. If I had been a very tiny little person and very skinny, I would have been dead. So for within my fat, and I have a little bit of it on my body, yes, it is holding the mercury. So I still measure with very, very high mercury and with lead, because it was mercury and lead. I'm very aware, even with house painting and this sort of thing, if there's any lead around me, I will go and do checking and this sort of thing now. So yes, I'm very attuned to it. But I went into depression. I see my whole experience as an absolute gift because I learned what it was like to lose your memory, and it helped me work with my mother when she ended up with dementia. I also learnt what it was like to go into depression. Now, I didn't have a clinical depression, but I still know what it was like not to wake up in the morning and wish I was dead. I remember waking up, I'd wake up in the morning and I really didn't want to be alive. So I suffered from depression, and I know what that black hole is like. Now, at this time, I work with a lot of clients who suffer from depression. So I understand what it is. So I see these experiences, as all the experiences I've had in my life, as a gift for me to learn so I can understand other people.
Absolutely. I just want to check in first with Dan. Dan, did that answer your question? Is that the angle that you were looking for when you were asking about creating new memories or reconnecting to previously stored memories? It sounds like it did. And Jack's here from the UK, 3 a.m. Jack, you never sleep, man. Hope you're good. Did you check out Memorandum? I hope so. You know, if you're just joining us, we're talking about Jennie Gorman's experience with memory loss. And we want to know, and it turns out, and I didn't know this, but there was also an experience that Jennie had with dementia in her family, and we want to know, what are your experiences with memory loss, and if you've had anyone in your family that has been touched by something like dementia or one of the related experiences with that, because that's its own story there. Is that...
I've got a lot of these stories. I've had some wonderful experiences in my life. You know, I've ended up in the wheelchair. I've had a lot of different experiences, but I see every experience as a gift. And I have learned that every time something happens, I tend to be a learner who learns through experience. So I'm blessed by giving lots of experiences that are pretty horrible at the time, but I understand it's important I have it because I know there's a bigger picture there, and that bigger picture is I'm going to be able to do something with that later.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
that's what's important to me, what I can do, because my experiences gives me ways of handling whatever the experience is, because all of a sudden I find someone in my life who is experiencing something similar, and I know, so I can empathize with them. I can help support them, which is something I couldn't necessarily do if I'd never been there.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, one of the things that has come up is your fame previously to this experience with memory loss as someone who had a very, very good memory. So take us into your memory of having a good memory, and did you do anything with your memory? And maybe before we get to that, let's just pick up with what Jack's saying here. Yes, I always had a bad period, Jack says, with memory loss. I couldn't remember a lot of my past, but since I started using memory techniques, I seem to have a much better memory, and I can remember some of my past. Well, that's very interesting, and congratulations, Jack. I mean, taking action just as Jennie took action with what she described, and if you didn't catch the beginning, you can get the replay of this on YouTube, and of course, if you're just joining and you're not subscribed to this channel, click that subscribe button, hit the little bell, and then you'll get notified when we go live. And hit those thumbs up so that we know that you're active and engaged, and let us know your experiences with memory loss and so forth. And, you know, the more active you are, the more we can be active with you, and the more that I can play with these buttons. Dan says, kind of answered the question. I know it couldn't be completely answered. Thank you. Greg says, hi there. Where are you in the world, Greg? Michael Swain's here, 11 a.m. in Japan. Good to be here again.
Hi.
Good to have you here, Michael. And Jack says, that's how I'm here. I've hit the bells to see if you are live. Okay, great. Well, more people, because, you know, this is the mission of this channel, is to have discussions, serious discussions about memory. Greg says he's in Italy. I love Italy. What a great place. Whereabouts in Italy? I love Rapallo. It's my favorite city there. Have you been to Italy?
I have been about 3 times.
Three times?
I love Italy.
Wow, wow. Well, where's your favorite place?
Northern Italy.
Yeah.
So Florence or... Cortina. There's some lovely little areas in northern Italy that I prefer, that I love. I would love to spend a bit of time there. I don't speak Italian.
Harvinder's here from India.
Hi.
Great to see you here, Harvinder, a great magnetic memory method masterclass owner. And you know what, Harvinder, you're right. I got to send you back an email. It's been a super busy week. One of the reasons why is because Jennie and I are working together on a couple of different things all at once. And Jack says, that's a good memory, Jennie. Yeah, it sounds like an amazing memory. And of course,
I have some really wonderful memories of Italy.
Italy is so great. Did you go to Rome?
I've been to Rome, yes, 3 times, stayed there, got very drunk in Rome. I probably shouldn't say that here. But yes, no, I love Rome. But no, I'm really drawn to northern Italy.
Right. Well,
it's more me.
We have to point something out because it's really, really important in case that Greg doesn't know this. But, one of the greatest mnemonists in all of history, he is from Italy, and actually two of the greatest mnemonists of all history are from Italy. So you have such a great heritage there, and the people that I'm thinking of are Matteo Ricci and Giordano Bruno, and of course in Rome, you may not have known it, but you probably have seen the statue of Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake in 1600. And a lot of people, they don't think that he was burned because of his magical memory techniques, but just because he was a stubborn SOB, if I can say that. But in any case, it's been supposed by a lot of people that Hamlet is actually based on Giordano Bruno. And
great.
In any case, that's a little bit of trivia. But
Nick's saying something there? Before there was something.
Yeah, Nick's message has disappeared somehow, but if it comes back, we'll catch up on it. Jack says, I totally agree. I used to use antidepressants, and I believe it played a big part of my memory loss. However, I'm still not sure what causes memory loss.
Well, I think for me, and talking about that, I was blessed with a doctor who does not believe in antidepressants. So from his perspective was, it'll rot your guts, we're not going to go there. So we used alternative methods totally, as I've always used with him in all the different challenges I've had. But the most important thing is to work out why you have a memory loss. And it's, there are a lot of different reasons, and I could have just got put down to had dementia or I had whatever, and it wasn't that at all. So if I hadn't had it looked at what was actually wrong, well, I probably wouldn't be alive. So it's really important, if you have some memory loss, is why you have the memory loss, and then learn some techniques that can help you to recover the memory.
Absolutely.
As long as it isn't dementia or Alzheimer's. And then if it is, it's learning techniques so you can remember things. And that's, of course, where you come into being, Anthony, with your magnetic memory.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that we need to understand is that there are multiple causes of memory loss. There are actually multiple kinds of memory loss. And any time that you have not captured information that you want, that effectively is memory loss. But there's the difference between, let's call it organic medical memory loss and then just not paying attention memory loss. So Nick wrote, when new research came up showing that my antidepressants could with time have side effects of short memory loss, I had to develop a plan getting rid of them. Now I'm drug free and happy. Oh, Nick, that's great to hear.
Wonderful.
We don't need to get into my story right now, but if you've been following the magnetic memory method story for any period of time, you know that I had to take antidepressants, and it was because of the memory techniques that I was able to cut through lithium fog, and I was on all kinds of crazy stuff, and it was just an incredible thing. And now I'm drug free, but that's because of a lot of discipline that I brought into my life. And you can see a doctor before you make any of these decisions, because neither of us are doctors, but please do look into these matters because you may have options. Drunken Monkey Fist says, would memory palaces help someone who has dementia? And Nick says, perspective of having memory loss was scary enough for going through withdrawals. Yeah, I think I went through a year of withdrawal from the drug that I used to take, which was Lamictal, or it's sometimes called Lamotrigine. To pick up on Drunken Monkey Fist questions, is it okay if we just dive into a little live randomness?
Love it.
Maybe you have some thoughts here. The thing with memory palaces and dementia is that we don't know yet. There's someone named Casper Bormans who is doing research with memory palace training for people with Alzheimer's. If you haven't seen his YouTube, or it's not YouTube, but it's a TED Talk on memory palaces for schizophrenia, you've got to look that up because it's amazing talk. And he has a very special symbol on the stage with him, and he does something really radical and dramatic with that symbol. So I won't steal his thunder, but you've got to go watch that because the research that he's doing with memory palace training for people who have Alzheimer's is absolutely incredible, and it looks like there are a lot of options. And we know from the research that there's a lot of memory palace work and general mnemonics and memory training for people that suffer from the what's called chemo brain, from taking chemotherapy, and they're getting great results for these people. Now, that's a very active memory training, but people also get memory benefits from what's called passive memory training. And we can talk about that on a different call, but one of the things that I want to do is keep going through these comments on the live, and it's great that everybody's participating. Let us know that you're here with that thumbs up and letting us know where you are in the world and subscribing. Adam says, that's what I think about all the time. Is it a memory problem or an attention problem? Well, that gets us back to what I was asking you before, which is, you know, when you were esteemed for being able to remember names of people before you had this memory loss experience, do you have an awareness of what was going on in your mind of how that you were remembering names so effectively?
I think as an 8-year-old, I went to boarding school, and it was a boarding school where there was 150 girls. So it meant that you learned how to remember everybody's name. So maybe because of having 9 years in boarding school, up to a boarding school with a couple of thousand people in, you had to find a way that you would remember people's names. So I think that was an advantage to me, and I probably learned when I was very young, because I'd come from the country, a one-teacher school, so it was a situation where there weren't a lot of kids, and then suddenly I'm thrust as an 8-year-old into an environment where there was a whole lot of people, and I need to remember who they were and remember all these teachers' names. And so I think I probably found a way myself of remembering, or whether I always had a memory, I don't really know. But I'm sure it had something to do with some of the early learnings I had of how to remember who people were. Because if you were spending time with a lot of people, you had to know them. It's like how do kids remember all the names of the people in the kids in their class? I don't know. There must be a technique we use. I have no idea.
You know how I used to do it? And I don't recall that other students used to do it, but every year in elementary school from grade 1 till 7, we were given a piece of paper a couple of times a year that would cover the surface of our desk so that we weren't drawing on our desks. And what I would do on that first day is I would write a list of all the students' names and have their names there. And, you know, I didn't use memory techniques when I was in elementary school, but it is a memory technique to write things down. A lot of people don't understand.
I write. So to my memory, I do write. I find that I write notes to myself even on my iPhone. I continually write little notes just as reminders what I've got to do in a day, and if it's something I want to do that day, I put it in my calendar. It goes into my calendar so I remember, and if I don't do it, it gets progressed to the next day. Because I do remember by writing too.
So that's a great...
look at all these wonderful comments coming.
Yeah, and I want to engage with them because that's what live is all about. So, you know, we appreciate you going through the choppy thing. I'm holding this on my thing, my selfie stick that April gave me because she saw me battling with handheld, and really thankful for that. And of course, we're here in the studio. We're making some new cool stuff that you guys are going to want to catch up with. And really appreciate you guys engaging. That's what this is all about. Adam says, another great live chat, Anthony. You batting 1,000. All right. Okay. And Adam shares. Thank you, Adam, for sharing the link or the title of the Casper Bormans at TEDx. It's one of the finest TED Talks out there. I wish it was more successful. And let's help make it more successful because, you know, it's not just about sharing this, that, or the other thing, but share the things that matter, the things that make a difference in your life. Drunken Monkey Fist, thanks, Adam, for sharing that. And I thank you again as well. Jack says, apparently when a person with Alzheimer's hears a song they know, they are able to sing along. I think that sounds and songs are great for triggering memory cells in the brain. That's
really true. We did that with my mother when she went in, had to go into a home. We got a player and we got she remembered the war from the war years, the World War II years, because she grew up at that time. So we got all the songs there and she would sing away, and you know, she really did. It helped her a lot.
Yep. And you know, there's a charity out there if someone here on the live wants to look it up. It's Music for Memory, Music in Memory, something along these lines. And I've contributed to it before. And they buy MP3 players for dementia patients. And if you watch their documentary, there's one old chap there, and he's just like in his wheelchair, totally vegetarian, you know, vegetose, and he gets this. They interview people's families to figure out what their soundtracks were that they loved or their favorite albums or whatever. They put the music on this guy's ears. He just comes alive. He's just got joy and he's singing. And you know what? He's still got dementia or Alzheimer's, but he's now alive and revived. And what they're doing in this charity by helping people with music is they're actually at early stages of the disease cultivating and curating their favorite music and then starting them already on that program. And I don't know exactly what the long-term effects of that are, but music is a huge thing. So thanks for sharing that thought, Jack. What's your favorite music, Jenny? We've never talked about music.
I like all music. It doesn't matter. I love classical music, but I love rock and roll. I was a great rock and roller. I love rock and roll, but I love jazz. Most forms of jazz. I love blues. You know, music is music. Right, It doesn't matter. I don't have a favourite as such because I love all music. As long as it's music, there's sound there for me. It makes me happy.
You mentioned in your discussion when we opened about memory loss and your memory experience that you had noticed some of the early effects while you were watching movies. Did you also notice anything with music?
No, I don't remember that. I don't know if I even had a lot of music around me at that time. I probably didn't play it. I remember Linda used to say, she used to say to me later when we'd talk about it, she said, "You're like a little nun. You just go and sit in a corner with your photos with the back to the world and just play with these photos." So that was a really big thing for me with the photographs. I did albums and albums. I had thousands of photos and I'd cut them out in different shapes and place them differently and make these beautiful pages of memory, of a particular memory, of particular people. And that really gave me, it was what I did. I locked myself away in my own world very much because I was so aware. I couldn't remember who people were. And that, I just remember that was really, really hard for me because I must have remembered. I'd always done that. I'd remembered before and I now didn't remember. So, and then of course the memory started to return after we started removing very slowly because it took a year to actually remove all the heavy metal from my mouth and replace everything. And of course I had 5 heavy metals in my mouth. And of course, as my dentist said to me, no one in their right mind, especially a dentist who's done chemistry, would ever put 5 different metals in someone's mouth. So it was really, he said, it's a result of dentists that have done this to you. So I wonder how many other people have experienced. And I do feel that a lot of people that are diagnosed with dementia, and if you look at it, it's an older age group where a lot of fillings, and of course with time they will leak. And I wonder how much of it is just heavy metal, heavy metal problem. And if you dealt with that, if you would reverse, I don't know. I know there's a lot of things I found with a lot of research that I did. In years ago, back in the 50s, when aluminium came out, we used to, or aluminum as they call it in some parts of the world, when that came out in our cooking, that utensils that people would have, they would cook in it. I grew up in an era where we had old Arga stoves. They were these wood burning and then coal burning and then oil burning stoves where the water would just sit boiling all day in a metal pot, or your food was sitting in there, so it could be sitting there for a long time just cooking. We did soups, and soups could be there for days. You just keep adding to the soup sort of thing. It's sitting in metal. That metal must come out in the food. And so I really do wonder how much of that really is affecting, because my mother's age group, she'd be in her 90s. If she was still alive, she'd be in her late 90s now. But if she was still alive, if the times when we'd started to discover this dementia, Alzheimer, it was with that generation that cooked in metal.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't get that from stainless steel, but if they were cooking in lead and in aluminium pots and this sort of thing, I would love to know whether there is something in that.
Yeah, well, one thing, when we first came to Brisbane and we had to buy all new stuff, I was dragging us all over the city looking for glass pots.
Yep.
And it's like, nobody uses glass pots here. We couldn't even find any. And then, I still need to look into that. The other thing is that when I was in university and I had to get a filling, that dentist, he said, every metal filling that you have is like smoking a pack of cigarettes every day. And so if you have 5 of them, it's like you're smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day. And ever since that time, I've had maybe 3 or 4 more fillings since then, but I've always had amalgam.
Porcelain.
Yeah, porcelain amalgam.
It's got a porcelain.
Yeah.
You have to be careful of the type, because I had supposedly with a dentist. We got rid of the metal ones, supposedly the silver ones, and he put in the white ones, which I thought were clear. And it wasn't until they tested them that all those that I had put in had heavy metal in them.
Let's catch up with some of our comments here.
Oh, there's so much.
Nick asked how to remember weird names. It's particularly hard for me. Names is a very cool thing. It's one of my better memory skills. Go to magneticmemorymethod.com/remember names, remember dash names, and that's a particular training on remembering names at live events. And Nick, you might find that one particularly interesting. You as well, Jenny, because I tell a story about how I was at a party. It was a party of entrepreneurs, and the way that we were all introduced gave me the opportunity to memorize all the names of all the people. And one of the people there was Brian Dean from Backlinko. Yeah. And Backlinko is a really, really great website for people who are online entrepreneurs for getting more traffic to your site, like when you go to magneticmemorymethod.com. And what's your site, by the way? You got a...
Which one? Okay, Connections Unlimited, as well as Business Mastermind Groups.
Absolutely.
I've got 5 different websites, so it depends what I'm talking about.
So anyway, we don't want to deviate too much off the topic of memory loss, but names is covered, and there's a lot of images there. You'll see, swords going into chests and all kinds of weird crap. But that's basically how you remember names. It doesn't matter that it's a complex one. It's how that you make imagery in your mind that you attach to it, and what you do with that imagery, where you place it. I love memory palaces. Alejandro says, have to go. Have an amazing rest of the day. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, and he says, take care. Well, we certainly will. Nick says, when I need to study, I listen to Pink Floyd. Screw Mozart, with a wink wink. And well,
that's okay, Nick. Your surname, I have a lot of problems remembering.
I think
because it's Russian.
I think Pink Floyd and Mozart have certainly had both their share of screwing each other, so to speak. Jack says, I listen to Pink Floyd, but I also listen to Mozart.
And Beethoven. Beethoven is brilliant.
I'm kind of a Bach person myself, but a lot of people who know me know that I study Bach, and maybe later I'll play you some Bach.
Oh, great.
But Nick says, I love Mozart, and was just joking about the Pink Floyd thing. Yeah, well, I mean, all music is great, and it's not really so much what the music is, it's that you enjoy the music and dance with the music. Nietzsche, he said that without music, life would be a mistake.
Well, I would agree with that, totally.
Greg here says, I think it's important to have a daily exercise to improve memory techniques. How long a day, or how long every day, and if I haven't got anything particular to memorize in that day, what about my memory palace? Well, the first thing I would say, Greg, is one memory palace is not the magnetic memory method. You're using multiple memory palaces. You're making new memory palaces often, if not daily, and that in itself is already a memory practice. Since that we're talking about music, one of the exercises that I love doing, and I do it a lot, especially like at the gym when people are just playing random music, when I hear a song that I haven't heard for a long time, I just instantly try and remember where was the first time that I heard it. Often I'll find out that where I first heard it hasn't been created as a memory palace before. And so then I'll formally create a memory palace out of that, right? And it just happened at the gym the other day because they were playing something from the Master of Puppets album, which was the Master of Puppets song by Metallica. Yeah. And I thought, where was the first time that I heard it? And I found out in my mind, and it may not be correct, but I think that I first heard it at Jeff Turner's house in Westside in Kamloops. And this unlocked a whole neighborhood because then I remember my friend Scott, and I was like, was I ever at Scott's house? And then I was like, yes, I was. And I started to remember a little bit about his house. And this is a memory exercise that you can do every single day just by switching on an album or paying attention to the music where you are and just thinking, that song, where did I first hear it, right? And then you can think about like another memory exercise, just random that you come up with is like, what was the song before Master of Puppets on the album Master of Puppets? Well, it was Battery, I think. And then it's The Thing That Should Not Be after that. And then we go to the whole playlist. These are memory exercises you can do all the time. They are exercising your memory. And then you go and check and you write it down because, as you mentioned, writing down is a great way to trigger memory. You write it down and then you go and check. Did I accurately remember all of the songs in the right order on that album? And then you can call up your friend Jeff Turner and say, hey, Jeff, I haven't talked to you since like 1990, but do I remember your house correctly? And and you can send a scan of the thing. This is just beautiful memory exercise that creates more memory palaces and gives you an opportunity to go and listen to that music. So I hope that gives you some ideas for memory exercise, Greg. And you can just learn to memorize its cards if you don't want to do that kind of stuff. And a deck of cards a day will... Well, I don't have a rhyme for that, but it'll do something awesome. One last comment, or more. Well, Adam says he's talking about a stabilizer for the iPhone and the camera makes these videos even more awesomer. You know what, Adam? I'd really appreciate if you would email me that suggestion or come back to this video and put it in the comments because I don't always am able to track back these live comments. And Adam continues, earlier you guys were talking about metals that dentists put in your mouth and getting the right cooking utensils. Dr. William J. Walsh talks a lot of about metals in our brains, especially on the influence of criminals.
Yeah, well, this is an diet, and this does make an enormous difference. I know that back in the late 60s, a doctor called Dr. Ben Feingold discovered, and he was known for working with hyperactive children. And this is when the hyperactivity diet was created, and I had a child who was like that. And he found with all his research, he went into prisons, that when he changed the diets in the prisons, the inmates changed. And they weren't disruptive. There wasn't a problem with them. And he discovered that there were, I suppose, allergies or whatever to certain foods that people were being affected who were inmates. And they would have never committed the crimes they committed had they had a different diet. So it was a lot of research done in the late 60s to very, very early 70s, 1970, 71, 72, around that time. And yes, he found out a lot of things, and it was to do with diet and, of course, heavy metal and this sort of thing.
Yeah, and diet is one of the best ways that you can heal your brain, that you can help your memory. And it's not just about what you eat. A lot of people are like, what do I add? What do I add? What do I add? It's also about what you take away, because a lot of the brain fog is coming from what you're eating. So you can...
Well, what's around you, it's your environment. I remember with my daughter, she couldn't use normal soap. We had to have toothpaste specially made for her. I could never wear a perfume or anything that had anything like that had a synthetic in it. So it's not only the food that goes in the mouth, it's what you put on your skin. It's a total thing, and depending on the individual sensitivities of the individual as to how they will react. We all have a level of when we reach saturation point, and I know, even with me with coffee will go bitter when I've reached my saturation point, and I know I have to slow down on coffee for a bit. Right. So it's understanding yourself and how you react, and it affects your memory.
Absolutely.
Memory is a big thing in this.
Greg says thanks for those memory exercise tips. And just like Jenny is saying about having to understand yourself, one of the ways that you find the best memory exercises is understanding your memory needs and then building your own exercises to suit that. And of course, there's a lot of people who've just nailed down what those things are. So when I go to the gym, I go and study a guy who has a body that I want to achieve, and then I go and do that sort of thing. So if you want to get this kind of memory, then, that, or find the guy who does the kind of memory that you want. And incidentally, there are female memory trainers as well. So don't think that you have to look for men. It's a really great... a great world out there. So you find people who you can model and learn what they're doing, and you can figure out how to do what they're doing. Nick says, Master of Puppets, first time Boy Scouts camp on a Walkman. So I bet you that camp could be a great memory palace, even if it's not as rigid as a building and so forth. Oscar's here. Great to have you here, Oscar. Yes, I think exercise is important. Also, I think you do it enough to feel better. I try to avoid doing too much, then I feel exhausted. Yeah, I definitely do a bit too much at the gym sometimes. Adam's sharing some books, Nutrient Power, Heal Your Biochemistry and Heal Your Brain from William Walsh. And he says, thank you for bringing up this interesting topic of the diet question, and we couldn't have done it without Jennie being here. So.
Well, Dr. Joseph McCullough is really interesting and goes into this, and he's an American. So he's worth looking at if you're interested in from a diet perspective or anything like that. And memory, he talks a lot about that.
Absolutely. Now, I want to say hello here to Stacy, the Sparkling Star, because Stacy recently just posted a link to some of her videos about aphantasia on my channel, and I really want to thank her for that, because the aphantasia issue is something that I think is easily solved by taking action and figuring out more about your learning preferences. But you got to show up to the practice. So if you all are interested in the topic of aphantasia, or aphantasia as it's sometimes called, I have a whole video about that with some suggestions on my channel. You can search Magnetic Memory Method and aphantasia, and Jack asks what is aphantasia, and it's the lack of a mind's eye. And I think it's one of the most fascinating things, but not a barrier to optimizing your memory. So listen, we are having a great time here, but we're going to start wrapping up. But everybody, please, if you even notice the smallest suggestion in your life that you're experiencing some kind of memory loss, do something about it. And what I think is so inspiring is that even in the early stages, Jennie came up with a strategy for dealing with it. So maybe just rehearse a little bit for the people that didn't catch the beginning, what it is that you did, and a little bit about the outcome, and then we'll jump out of here.
Oh, you want me to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm so busy watching and listening to you and seeing all the little messages that are coming. For me, for my memory, when I realised I was losing my memory, it was because I couldn't remember my best friend's name. I could sit in a room with her and look at her and not know who she was, yet I knew she was my friend, and I knew I should remember her. So yes, for me, I use a lot of different therapies, but I use photographs, my own photographs, to try to put together stories of experiences I had and places I went to. And by doing that, it gave me the ability to then reconnect with the memories that went with that, while I learnt and had to remember who were the people there, what were their names, and eventually I got the memory back. But that was one of a lot of things I did, of course. But I found doing it through photos was the best way for me personally.
Yeah, and I would just suggest that engaging with all kinds of information that is outside of your body is a really, really great thing to be doing at all times, because externalizing information is just a super, super powerful thing to be doing. And it doesn't matter what's going on, but journaling and having a daily journal practice and manipulating images and so forth is a really, really great thing to be doing.
Yeah. Well, they're also they're saying with people with memory loss, there is a test you can do to see whether you genetically you could have that. And I remember my sister asking that question of her mother-in-law, who was a medico, and she just said, just do Sudoku every day. Just don't worry about whether you're one of these people or not. It's more important you practice different things to keep your memory going. So the more things you do that will use, like Sudoku or anything like that, any games that are forcing you to remember things. I play a lot of Scrabble, and I do trivia, and I do other things that help bring memory back. And of course, music does that for me. Music is very prominent in my life for bringing back my memories, because when I hear it, or usually with just about every piece of music, there's somebody I will think of or remember as a result of something I was doing.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that the whole topic of music came up, because music is so much. And Well, I promised Jenny I'd play her a little bit of Bach, and so we'll do that.
I look forward to that.
And I want to thank every single one of you for being here today on this live call, for your engagement, for being part of the mnemonics renaissance, and for being so interactive with Jenny, my special guest today. Jenny, where can people learn more about you and hook up with your social media? And I know you're really active on Facebook. Where can people find you?
Well, you can go to Facebook /Jennie Gorman, JENNIE Gorman, GORMAN, and I will come up. I do have 39 social media sites, so if you look for Jennie Gorman, spelled Jenny with a IE, there is someone else out there, but it's my face. So if you remember what I look like, I use basically the same, most pages have the same profile on. So yes, join me, send me a message, talk to me. Thank you, I'd love to.
Yeah, and you know, it's Gorman without an E, so Gorman. And one of the mistakes that I made, and here's one of those little funny blips that happens with memory techniques, is because of the image that I used, I had memorized it with an E. So I had to be corrected about that. But you know what? The beauty of working on your memory is that it is an ongoing game of optimization. And so we thank you for being here, and check out Jenny's stuff on the internet, and just be a supporter of the things you love on the internet so that we can continue educating you about the things that will make your life better. This has been Anthony Metivier from here in the Magnetic Memory Method headquarters in Brisbane. I don't know about you, I'm really sweaty under these hot lights. Let me know if you like these kinds of live interviews with people, and we'll do more of them. But for now, all of you who are here now, love you very much. Thank you for being here. Come visit me at magneticmemorymethod.com. If you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe, and actually subscribe over at magneticmemorymethod.com too, because that's where all the real magic happens. Thank you for being here. And Stacy, I hope to talk to you more about aphantasia. I think it's one of my major projects coming up. And Oscar, yes, I have looked into Tesla, going to be doing that. Harvinder and all Masterclass members who may have had a slow response, lots of cool things are happening right now. I'm going to catch up with you. But for now, I love you so much. Thank you for your support. And we'll talk to you soon. And until then, keep yourself. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you
so much. Keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.
Bye.